Benvenuti and ciao ragazzi to another episode of From N to I, the podcast which gives you short blasts from SSC Napoli's past. There we go. I'm really proud of that. It only took me 3.5 years of studying Shakespeare and Elizabethan poetry to come up with something with perfect scansion. Anyway, I'm Henry Bell, and I'm joined today, as ever, by the woman who literally wrote the book on Napoli, Kirsten Schlewitz. Kirsten, how the devil are you?
Well, I am just perfect. However, my cat Ziggy de Callejon is not too pleased because I had to move her off of the snuggles in order to record this podcast. So it better be worth it. And I think it's going to be worth it because it's on my favorite topic, which is the what
you're keeping us in suspense.
I know.
It's
what most of social media hates, which is where sport and politics come together.
Get that shit in my veins. I mean, like, one of my favorite books written about football is The Ball is Round and the Age of Football, David Goldblatt stuff. I was very lucky to interview him once. Please do read it. Or what else we got? Football Against the Enemy, Simon Cooper. There's a great tradition of excellent writing about football and politics. And perhaps even your book, Kirsten, on Napoli might skirt some of these issues, or is it more of a on the nose, this is what happened on the pitch kind of a book?
Oh, we can't take away my personality from the book that I wrote. It definitely starts with a whole history of the city of Naples, which has to involve politics, and then it will delve into many of the political issues that Naples and the peninsula of Italy faced at the time. But when we're speaking of books, I actually wanted to start this podcast off with a quote from John Foote, who, depending on where you're from, wrote either Calcio, A History of Italian Football, which is kind of boring as a title, or as I have it in print copy, Winning at All Costs, A Scandalous History of Italian Football.
I love that. That's just like the difference between our two English-speaking nations in a nutshell, Kirsten. That's wonderful.
Plus, you gotta get the Americans with a more gripping title, I think. So what he writes, which is, I think, extremely relevant to what we're going to be talking about, is most serious Italian fans are well aware of the date of foundation of their club, its record, its founders, and its historic players, managers, and even the various stadiums where the club has played. All these historic features are a strong part of a civic religion, adherence to which is a crucial aspect of fan identity. Founding myths, legends, and stories perpetuate this self-styled football history as tales are handed down from generation to generation. Now, we have that. But what we're going to dive into today is the fact that Napoli's birthday, which they celebrated this year on August 1st, is not actually their birthday.
What?
That's right.
That was a perfectly timed what? So yeah, Napoli, you're telling me, Kirsten, is like the Queen of England in many ways, but in this way, that they got more than one birthday. I didn't know this. My knowledge of like early Napoli history is pretty rubbish. Like, I know that I think it was like English sailors and cricket clubs and stuff like that, but I'm sure you had to dig in. So today we're going to be talking about these two birthdays, right, Kirsten?
Well, we're mostly going to be talking about, I guess we're going to be talking about both birthdays. We'll get all the way to August 1st, 1926, which is the one that for some reason the club celebrates. Now, you say that you know a little bit about, in general, football history on the peninsula. What would you say in terms of the original history of calcio in Italy? What springs to mind?
English sailors teaching football to people in port towns like Genova, and sports clubs being set up that aren't just football clubs. So I think Genoa, their original title is Genoa Football and Cricket Club, is something like that, isn't it? Am I right?
That's absolutely perfect. And
Yes.
I just want to know everyone to know that for once, there was no coaching involved on either side. That was a completely random question. I know they're not going to believe it, but it's true. What I wanted to start out with is the fact that Napoli's football history started from the fact that at that time it was a port town. You won't see much of the port if you're in the normal city proper these days, but like Genoa, which is pretty much the most famous, infamous footballing town in the early years of the sport on the peninsula. Naples had the same sort of thing, but at the same time, in the same way that the history of the city was distinct from the rest of the country. And keep in mind that we're talking about, let's say, 50 years from when the actual country was established. And you think about the fact that Naples still doesn't feel like it's part of the rest of the country. It still feels alienated. Back then, it was even more so. So even though, like the others, it was a port city, like Genoa, it followed kind of the same lines. It was Napoli, cricket, and football. No, not Naples, of course, because you got to be English. Naples Football and Cricket Club, like Genoa. Same sort of naming. They did do things a bit differently, just like in general, the whole city kind of did at the time.
Is this when you asked me to talk about cricket for half an hour, Kirsten?
No,
I can do that. Like, it was the only sport I was good at school, which I think says more about cricket than it does about me.
How about we wait a few hours and then you tell me that to put me to sleep later?
Oh, fair enough.
It's cruel. It's cruel. So, if you're thinking about football, what sort of, I guess, income bracket or economic status would you say that the people who are, and at this time clearly it was boys/men who are playing it, what springs to mind?
So if we're in a port town, I mean, like back in England, it started in private schools and posh people, and then the working classes took over, which thank God. But I'd say at this point, yeah, we're talking about like sailors and people like that. So like not like super wealthy people, not like yacht owners, more the people who work on the yachts, maybe.
No, we're still talking about the very privileged people back in.
Like posh English people who went to private schools and they had like 5 different surnames: Humphreyton, Smythe, Booth.
The like double-barreled surnames. We won't go into those. You can read my book if you need the actual names. But yes, we're talking back in 1898, and when the first game in Naples was actually involving a sailing team and boat racers. And they were under the name Circolo Italia at the time.
Okay.
And it was definitely the rich people, because when you think about it, think about anybody who knows Naples history at the time. They're not getting any money from the overarching state. They are kind of lower down on the economic ladder. They're dealing with cholera, everything like that. Basically, it's only the higher ups who can afford to play football. And for the most part, that's foreigners. So what we have here is the Naples Football and Cricket Club, like I said, and that's actually where Napoli, SSC Napoli, extends their roots back.
I've just to interrupt, all I've got in my head is you've got like posh English sailors with very long names. This sounds like a Gilbert and Sullivan musical. This doesn't sound like the formation of like the club where Diego Maradona did his thing.
I'm not. This was 1904 when NFCC, one might call it, formed, was that when Gilbert and Sullivan were making their rounds, one might ask?
But and those of you that don't know, Gilbert and Sullivan's a kind of sort of light opera, so it was kind of like popular musical theatre way back in the day. Pirates of Penzance.
Yeah, I was going to say, just
so
watch The West Wing for those colonialists out there.
That's good advice for anyone. Just watch The West Wing. I think you could do an amazing production of the Pirates of Penzance set in Naples with the formation of the club. There you go. Somebody give me lots of money to do that in Naples, please. Anyway, shut up, Henry. Tell us more. So we're sort of, it's cricket, it's posh English people, it's early 20th century.
Posh British sailors, to be clear. But here, will this fit in with your Gilbert and Sullivan? They beat Arabic 3-2 in their first game.
Sorry? Say that again, Kirsten. I didn't hear that.
Arabic. Does that fit with your Gilbert and Sullivan pretensions?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I'm not very good at the whole musical scene unless we're talking about like Buffy musicals. But,
that's a different podcast, but one I really want to make.
Next time, Henry. Next time.
Okay.
So they beat Arabic 3-2, like I said. But what was most surprising, and as we already discussed, is Genoa was kind of the big club in Italy at that time. And Arabic had just beat Genoa 3-0 at that time. Cool. So it's basically saying, if you're on Twitter in the early 20th century, you're saying, we're better than Genoa, we're better than Genoa. And yes, we're saying Genoa, not Genova. That will become clear later.
Hashtag young and fun. Okay. So when's this first? Is this birthday the same or different birthday?
You're jumping ahead.
Sorry, I'll shut up.
So we've got to stop. We're in 1904 now, in that general area, in that decade of like 15 years between 1898, when the first British soldiers had a kickabout in Naples. We sail the ocean blue. Yes, beautiful. Sorry, Ron. You're still not talking in your Manc accent, but maybe we'll get to that soon. So like 15 years, we're thinking about what is now Syria was organized into regional groupings. So Genoa is not playing Napoli or Naples Football and Cricket Club, as it was called at that time, because of racism, more or less. The league says, it was open and inclusive from that time, if you research the history, but no, it wasn't. It was only open to northern clubs, and it wasn't till the 1912-1913 season in which they let in a Campagna section. And at that time... Oh my God, did they use that word? Probably because we're going with English. Yeah. English.
So they wouldn't let teams in from the south, basically, into the league.
At that time, no, because remember, proper British people, and we're before the war and all that stuff. So,
okay,
what happens? We're given this section, and so obviously, International Napoli forms to be, kind of a competitor to Naples Football and Cricket Club. And then, so we're in the First World War, and they're both playing. Obviously, the league stops a little, and as my book goes into, there's a debate about who wins the overall league title during that time, because it had to be stopped during the war. But no interruptions. I see your face. Y'all. No,
just Naples being a 2-club town is like the weirdest thought in the whole world.
It's amazing.
Carry on.
Get to it. It's not just a 2-club town, if you believe many of the reports. So we're coming up on this. So we're in Naples. It's what year did World War I and professor.
1918. One of those two.
1918, I'm almost positive. So
Yeah,
how would you imagine Naples at that time?
Like a lot of European cities, sort of struggling to recover from the fact that most of the young male population has been killed by a war that didn't need to be fought by a bunch of aristocrats.
Yes, exactly. So we have that. We have the deaths from the war, the lack of the ability to increase the population because of that. But we also have the continuance of sicknesses like cholera. And then we have the factories, because in Naples at that time, so many of the factories were dedicated to helping out with the war effort. They're closing.
Munitions.
Yeah. And shipping.
Yeah.
Those are all closing. And so people are out of work. And the rest of the country, because even back then, 100 years ago, they were saying, the South isn't contributing to the rest of the country. They're not going to give them any aid they might have given or any benefits they might have had from building up after the First World War. So what happens? International Napoli and Naples Football and Cricket Club come together and they form Napoli, right? Okay.
Just say that once more, because you slightly cut out there. So they formed what? Sorry. What was the club?
They formed Napoli, which
Napoli. Cool.
I don't know if you'll find in many histories, because it actually has like if you were to create a family tree, it has its own descendants, sort of thing.
Right.
But
yeah.
For this purpose, they came together. But at this same time, who is it that comes to power?
Oh dear. Mussolini.
Exactly.
And the
At
fascists.
the same time that Naples is desperate and their footballing history is also desperate, it's Mussolini that's like, hello, I'm here. I'm going to fix the country, including the South. So here is where we come to the fact that when we celebrate Napoli, their birth, we're actually celebrating fascism. Because
what the hell?
Yeah.
Come on, tell me what. So
okay. So even in my book, which obviously can go into more depth than this, I could not find the actual formation of the first Naples Football and Cricket Club, the actual date. But it's not August 1st, 1926. And even the formation of SSC Napoli is not August 1st, 1926. But how we get there is the fact that Mussolini comes to power, and like fascists, Nazis, autocrats, everyone like that, he thinks, okay, sport is going to be my way to show dominance in the public sphere. And at that time, Italy was very into individualistic sports like cycling and athletics, gymnastics, that sort of thing. And Mussolini steps in and he's like, calcio. We're going to call this sport calcio. We're going to align it with the calcio Fiorentina, but that's not the right word. I'm sorry. I was so exuberant about all of this. I can't remember, but it's calcio storica.
Yeah, calcio storica.
The sport that was founded in Florence at the time. Yeah. There's no actual connection, but he wanted to make it seem like the sport was present before the British set foot on
classic sort of nationalist, sort of fascist sorts of things to say it's ours, it's in our blood, it's actually Italian, even though the whole concept of Italy is entirely founded on immigration and people coming in. But that's a different podcast. But
exactly, another podcast. But you've got it exactly correct. He wanted to make it seem like this was something that was in the Italians' blood. So,
oh my God.
Much more than that, in terms of, in order to overcome this love for individualistic sports, he obviously had to make calcio, which he named it, into a sport that Italians, even though that people on the peninsula still weren't into calling themselves Italians, had to make it into something that they loved, they celebrated, and even more so, that they were good at. So, 1926, that's the birthday that Napoli celebrates, right?
Yeah, August the 1st.
Exactly. It's on our crest, everything, which, by the way, our crest is the most boring in football, which just
easy to escape copyright laws. Anyway, that's not a podcast. You can't copyright a letter.
Probably not. I actually have advanced intellectual property law degrees. So again, that's the third podcast.
That's another podcast.
We've
got so many podcasts. Anyway.
I know. So 1926, Mussolini and his government, they take control of calcio. And they already have it so that it's like, oh yeah, we're part of Italian history by tying it back to Florence and its language, which we've created. Another podcast, how Italian came to being. But so they say that the big cities have clubs that are underperforming. And do you think you can name the 3 cities who in 1926 the clubs were underperforming? Obviously, you know one.
I'm going to say Naples, Florence, and Milano.
2 out of 3. So
I suppose Milan were doing quite well. I don't know. Turin would be, or Torino would be the other one.
So we've got Naples, clearly, because this is a Napoli-focused podcast. Of Florence
and Rome.
Rome, yes. It's Lazio.
So I'm not competitive when it comes to quizzes at all. But
interestingly enough, Lazio, who most of us despise, are the ones that don't go for this idea. It's Roma that join in. And the Mussolini government, who is in charge of the footballing world, says you have to combine your clubs and put out a decent product so that we can show the world that we are good at sports, specifically football. And so Florence, easy enough. It combines. Rome, as I said, Lazio does not join in, but Roma takes on other smaller clubs. And here's where it gets interesting for Naples. We celebrate that August 1st birthday, but if you look back in the actual archives of print journalism, on August 25th, I'm not saying this is a birthday because we don't know the actual birthday, but August 25th was a meeting in which a bunch of very important people sat down and said, we are going to change the name from Inter Napoli, had become Inter Naples because, it was better to be English. So from Inter Naples to Napoli, which is more Italian. And that is actually documented. I think it was in Mezzogiorno. But other sources also say that the club absorbed other small clubs from the Naples area. Not like the wider region, but the actual city. And so that's why we're saying, okay, Naples is a one club town, just like Fiorentina is a one club town. Rome would probably be a one club town too if Lazio hadn't protested.
So Roma, Fiorentina, and Napoli all have the same birthday. Is that right? I didn't know that.
Exactly.
1926.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yes.
And Mussolini, the government funded this in some way, did they? It was like,
I'm not sure if it was funded so much.
Or we'll let you
as
into
it
the
was,
league sort of thing.
We won't like hang you from lampposts,
Okay.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
So if you read back into like official club history, and you won't find mention of this, because obviously who wants to talk about their fascist roots and their like basically bowing down to fascist pressure. But there's plenty of outside sources who say like Naples had this meeting, which, like I said, I've read in actual scanned newspaper articles, and then others who said Napoli absorbed the smaller clubs at the time, leaving them into this one club city.
So can I ask you a question?
Obviously.
Kirsten? What birthday do you think we should celebrate? That moment when we first had the Gilbert and Sullivan English sailors turn up and kick the ball about for that first game that we won 3-2 or whatever it was against the team that beat Genoa.
Because SSC Napoli, the official club right now, would not answer any of my inquiries as to
Funnily enough, so you're founded by fascists.
Yes.
Can you reply to my email, please?
They want to stick to that line, apparently, because they won't tell me when the first club that they're tracing back their history to, and if you go even to the easy source of Wikipedia, they will trace back their history to the Naples Football and Cricket Club and take their wins and things, their participation in the
So when was that first game?
league.
So everyone listening, if you know the first game of the Naples, what was it called again? Football and Cricket Club.
Naples Football and Cricket Club met Arabic in their first game, and I did not say the year, so please, we will find some kind of prize to award you if you can come up with the year that those two met.
And that, I personally would feel more comfortable celebrating that birthday than the 1st of August, if I'm brutally honest with you.
And
but I think many people
give you
would.
An incredible prize if you can actually tell me when the actual day that first game is, because like I said, I spent over 2 years writing this book and no one could tell me what the day was that game occurred.
Oh, I feel like we're doing like a true crime podcast now.
Exactly.
We need some kind of like marimbas in the background, and you can say, so here's the thing. Huh.
So here's the thing. Fuck everyone. As a tribute to my favorite murder. So
love it.
So Mussolini did things that we still celebrate today. So he built those new stadiums, which are in the brutalist style that we can all identify with, including the Franchi.
Italy won 2 World Cups under Mussolini. Yes,
but we're not going that far. Calm down.
No, we're not. Sorry. Can of worms.
He united the league, so there wasn't the divisions. There was no longer the whole somebody has to beat so-and-so and then go on to beat Genoa in order to beat the whole league. They just have to be like Serie A these days and finish the very top. But they also had to change their names. So I think you've picked a couple of the names that had to change. But can you name the 3 biggest names? 2 of them you've said.
Fiorentina and...
No.
Oh, well, in Naples?
No.
Oh, just in the whole of Italy?
The top league of Italy, what names had to change from English to Italian in order to fit Mussolini's fascist dictates that...
Rome.
No, they were always Roma.
Always Roma. Well, Genoa have stayed English, but did they have to change it? Then they changed back.
Genoa, yeah. So another city like that would be?
So tell me. I'm gonna stop guessing because I'm ruining
So we've
your
got
flow.
Genova and obviously Milano. But
And then they changed back after Mussolini, presumably.
yes, those two changed back. But here's the thing. Inter Milan, as it was in English, obviously couldn't become Milano because there was one of theirs.
Yeah.
So they became Ambrosiana.
Yes. I remember that bit of John Foot's book. Yes.
So if you see that name in old Italian records, it's Inter at the time. So on to the very end of this little spiel is the first season, 1926, 1927.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a few guesses here. How many points did Napoli? The combined Napoli.
This is famous. Like, it was a terrible season, wasn't it? Like, we got like 2 points or something. Was it 2?
Even lower.
More. 1. None.
Well, we got 1 point in a draw against Brescia. How many goals did we score?
Maybe 1. No, more than 1.
No,
2.
Salustro was better than that.
Oh, of course, he had a Tidio Salustro. Allora, I'd say 19 goals.
No, we only scored 7 with a negative 54 goal difference. So, in other words, Napoli fans, right now we're flying high, but already we have 6 points at the time of this recording. There's no way we could be as bad at that as that first season in the United Italian League.
1926-27 season.
Yes. And what nickname came out of that?
Wow. I know this. The Donkeys.
The Donkeys. I Cucciarelli.
Cucciarelli. Very good.
Yes.
Of course. And it was it the badge for a bit?
Okay, so what happened was at the time we had a badge that had featured a horse, but we performed so badly that a fan watching, well, not watching because back in the day, but a fan looked at the badge and was like, that does not look like a horse. That looks like this guy who comes to the bar every weekend with his donkey. His donkey has a crooked back. His donkey is clearly weak. That's what we should be calling our team. But because of Naples being Naples, Neapolitans being stubborn and, almost donkey-like, they kind of embraced that nickname and they were like, we're going to run with it. We're going to be the Donkeys. And from then they made a better badge with an actual donkey on it. Unfortunately, we don't still have that badge, but
my favorite Napoli shirt has a donkey on it. It's the season Ruud Krol's last season in the 80s. Beautiful. The away strip. I think it was 82-83, and it's got the crest as a donkey, and it's cheery. It's beautiful.
I think it's using the older crest, which I actually plan to get tattooed on me if
that's a great idea.
If I win the bet between myself and my Roma friend, whoever at the end of the season comes out higher on the table gets the tattoo. That's going to be the one.
I think that's great, but I also think we should have that instead of the end. I absolutely love the donkey crest. Those of you listening, do look it up through the ages. I think it's great.
Please do.
And it's super Neapolitan, like reclaiming that idea of like slightly taking the piss out of yourself, but also kind of saying "fuck you" to the rest of the world. Pardon my French.
Thank you. No, the "fuck you" is what I want to end on, which is us saying it's time to move away from celebrating that August 1st, 1926 birthday. We can move on to celebrating the 25th, which is still a little iffy because it's fascist, but hopefully if
it's less symbolically connected to Mussolini.
Because for all of our sporting lives, we've gone against the grain. We've gone against what's expected. We've embraced the, I guess, not just extraordinary, but the absurd. So why are we sticking with this fascist plan when we're ignoring this history, which if you look it up or read my book eventually when it comes out, we won the Lipton Cup like 3 times before we became SSC Napoli in 1926. We, like I said, we beat Arabic, who had beat Genoa.
So there's actually loads of different dates
we
that we could
actually
choose.
succeeded, but we decided to go with this 1926 date in which we were absolute crap. And
literal donkeys.
Literal donkeys. But the most important thing is that we existed before then, and we want to celebrate what is a unique history that doesn't involve Mussolini meddling.
And let's get Gilbert and Sullivan playing in the stadium as part of the pre-game routine.
Wait, they're not alive anymore, though, are they?
No, but the music, they play all sorts of like 90s dance tracks.
That's
so why can't we have, we sail the ocean? Anyway, I think this signals the fact that we should probably stop talking now. But Kirsten, that was absolutely amazing.
Singing.
But honestly, thank you so much for that. That was amazing. And, can't wait to read the book. But also I think it's really important, like history that we should be aware of. And so I think we should not just release this podcast, but I think we should continue to bang this drum, particularly when we get around to August every year. And if anyone can find the date of that first game, that would be amazing if we could actually form a kind of alternative celebration of the club. So thank you for your expertise and knowledge, Kirsten.
That's what I'm here for.
Absolument. Allora, so you can find Kirsten at Katie Schlewitz on Twitter. Go to Far From Vesuvius at Far From Vesuvius on Twitter. You can see all of our handles. Other podcasts on the network are the Napoli Rant and In the Shadow of Vesuvio. And please investigate those. They're all on the same feed. And thank you so much for listening. Please spread the word about this podcast. We're new, and I think we're offering something quite important for people who are coming to this club at different points in their lives, and it's a different way of finding things out. And I have learned a lot today, so that's great. Cheers, and thanks for listening, and Forza Napoli.
Sempre.